Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Greetings, and more greetings. I am Brother Kofi Sankofa, and we are about to start a journey today. It is once a month we do an Afrocentric podcast brought to you by CANCC Collective Corporation, as well as the Bese Saka Cultural Solutions, Inc. And every like the fourth Friday, we reason with our community about generational wealth, about real estate investments, as well as how do we do this with our African Black community. But before we start, we need to do it right. So before we start, let's bring homage to our ancestors, those ancient ancestors who birthed humanity, who gave the world civilization, what I call the triple heritage. African people birthed humanity. African people populated the world to bring other nations into the world. And we want to give thanks for the original people, the most indigenous of indigenous, who populated the earth, Africans who traveled before Columbus, and the third advent, the Africans who were captured, enslaved, and experienced a genocidal passage they call the Middle Passage. And their bodies speak to us from the bottom of the ocean, and they continue to speak to us during the hurricane seasons as they travel here to say, do not forget us. They always say Sankofa. And we want to thank those who resisted on the barracoons and the plantations. And today we want to have a blessed day. We want to welcome our ancestors into this space as we begin to rebuild and redo our nation building process. This is we are the original people. So first of all, we want to welcome two Abenas, Abena, Miss Ginelle Skerritt, and Abena, Porcia, Boateng. So first, let's start with Sister Abena Ginelle Skerritt. How are you doing today? Please come on, unmutified, come. We are ready to have our reasoning.
I am doing better than most today. I'm sitting on my porch enjoying a nice breeze and ready to listen and learn and share.
Share. Then I want to bring on Abena, Porcia, Boateng. Welcome, greetings.
Hello, hi everyone, and I am excited to be here. I'm excited to stand in the gap to communicate whatever it is that we're about to speak about on behalf of our people, because I believe that everything that we're going to do here today is so needed in our community. And I think I'm glad to be on this stage with you, Ginelle and Sankofa and Mr. Sean, be on here today just to share what it is that, because I also believe that as much as we've been given, we are required to also give, right? So that's what we're here to do.
So since we're here, since you're telling me this, let's talk about names. Let's take you home. I would like to know your Abena name, because you know me, I told you already, I'll be seeing a lot of Abenas today. So tell us about names and where were you born, and tell us a little bit about your roots and culture.
Okay, so I was actually born in Ghana. I am from the Ashanti, Ashanti tribe. And I came to Canada when I was about 11 years old. And I've been here ever since. And you know what? The thing about when it comes to coming here is that when I came, I will say I lost my identity because I became so submerged into the culture that is in Canada, right? Because when you come, you know, especially as an African coming in the schools, it's very difficult because your accent is scrutinized, who you are is scrutinized, everything is scrutinized. And one thing I will never forget is, like, with me coming from back home, I was privileged. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I was privileged back home, right? I went to private school. I had maids. I had all of that, right? So when I came here, I remember, this is a story that I will never forget. I remember I came to Canada, and I will have always been my mom's secretary. I will go everywhere, fill out her applications. So we went to the school for me to register for school. And I was filling out the application. I completed the whole application. Okay. And then the principal saw me completing the application, and she's like, "Did you do this all by yourself?" I was like, "Yes." She's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm highly educated." Okay. And also, even when I came here because the standard of education back home is higher than here, right? The things that I had done in like grade 2, they were doing here in like grade 7. So I used to think some of the kids were not all up there, but that's neither near or there. But that's the thing that we find, because we are valued, but a lot of times when we come here, we don't value the asset that we are. And I think it's time for us to value that we are an asset. The world teaches us that we are liabilities, but I'm here to tell you, we are an asset, and it's time for us to rise up, to stand up and reclaim what has been taken from us, because nothing can be taken from you unless you give it. So it's time for us to find out who we are, learn about you, learn about where you come from. Because you know what? I will say, with other people, I was bred in the motherland, right? So there's things that I was privy to. There's some privileges that I have because of that. But some people were not, right? And it's time for us, whether you are, whether you're not, it's time for us to do that. Even coming here and, especially with the Caribbean culture, a lot of people used to scrutinize us as being Africans, right? A lot of, I grew up with a lot of Jamaicans. And even that, it was an issue because you couldn't even fit as a Black person because you're African. And they didn't appreciate the fact that you're African. But I see that now we are starting to understand that we're all equal. We're all equal, right? And that's what it is. Till we start to unite. Because it says that unity, because when we're united, nobody can break unity. But we all need to have one mind, one heart, and get together, because that's the only way we will be able to rebuild whatever it is that we're trying to rebuild.
Medasi. All right. So we have somebody born in Ghana. Then we have Abena Ginelle Skerritt. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your roots. And, sometimes when I'm in Trinidad and Trinidad, I hear Yoruba, spiritualist. I felt that energy. So I am curious to hear your journey, Abena, Gina.
So I am Ghanaian by choice, because in my own journey to discover what the roots are, it's very unclear, and there's a lot of mixing. That's pretty common amongst people in Trinidad and Tobago. But I had access to the information about Ghana, and I am married to a person, although his family is from Trinidad, they maintain the name Kwame in their family. And his grandfather taught him that they were from Ghana. And so not only because of the marriage, but also because I was already drawn towards those traditions that were Ghanaian, and I appreciate them. So I am Abena by choice, but I do agree that historically, a lot of the traditions that we practice in Trinidad spiritually lead one to believe that they are from the Yoruba culture. And so that is also very strong. And so my children have names that are in both the Yoruba and in the Akan tradition. And however, we live mostly following Akan traditions, and through that sense of what we have retained as Trinidadian people, that we can relate directly to the principles, the customs, and the ways of being of the people. And on my visit to Ghana, where I went for my 50th birthday and enjoyed the experience tremendously, I could see the parallels. I attended a festival in the Cape Coast And aside from the slaughtering of the cow, which is something that we would not do in Trinidad, everything else about it was very much like our carnival. And so I thought, well, this is down to the Mokojambis. They had or stilt walkers. I don't know what the Ghanaian name for it is, but in Trinidad, the Mokojambi culture is huge at carnival time. And it's just a part of how we express ourselves in a cultural space. So most definitely I am Ghanaian by choice. And I'm coming to you today from Adinkra Farm. We chose the name Adinkra Farm based on the Adinkra symbols, which are prominent in Ghana, but originated in the Ivory Coast. And so that's really,
well,
I guess, a little bit of the history.
I was just gonna say, have you ever been to Laventille?
Laventille in
Yeah,
Trinidad?
Yes.
Well, yes. However, where my family is from is in Belmont, and actually Nelson Street, which is deep ghetto in Trinidad. And as a matter of fact, when I returned to Nelson Street, which is where I was born there, and that's where we lived when I was born, I'm told that it's very dangerous for me with my Canadian accent to be walking around there. So by myself, yeah. But my dad can take me back. He keeps connected. But
yeah, I really enjoyed it when I was there. By the way, when I travel, wherever they tell me not to go is where I go. So I was in Laventille with the drums. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. You see, if I was male, I probably would feel a little bit more confident about doing that. But as a female, I listened. When they told me don't go there, I didn't go.
All right. So you know what? We're gonna go together next time I go, as we're going. You know. So thank you. I'm not over. I'm not talking about Sawan. You know, you Trini. I didn't get to go to Tobago, but I'm going back to go to Tobago, because Tobago, I hear have a lot of African retention. Yeah, I'm asking you, is it true that Tobago have? Yeah. Okay, good. Yes. So let's go over. I want to know from Abena, Porcia, have you been to Ijusu?
What?
Ijusu, where Nanaya Asantewa is from.
Let me be honest with y'all, okay? Let me be frank. I have been in this country and I haven't gone back. I want to be honest. And like I said, you know, I believe that everything happens for a reason, because I spent, let's say, 15 years of my life running away from who I am. Right? Running away from who I am, because I was looking at society's ideas of who I should be. So I was running away from who I was. Like I said, growing up, being an African was not something that was embraced, right? So I grew up with a lot of the West Indian people. That's who I grew up with, right? Even my kid's father is Trinidadian. And that's where I grew up, right? That's where I associated with, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was. And you go and you run. But I'm glad I had to go on that journey, because I was able to sit on the outside, look in. So now that I'm back in my community, I know what my community is in need of. I know what I can do to help my community, because a lot of people are like me and are still like me, running away from who we are. But we have to come and embrace and learn about, because I had to spend that time to really learn about myself for the past 5 years, learning about who I am, learning to love myself as a Black African woman, as a Ghanaian born woman, to embrace that. And once I was able to embrace that, that's when my life just pivoted. That's when I grew strength. That's when, you know, and it's all the mercies of God. That's how I became who I am today, where I can boldly go and stand in my truth, right? I can speak to my community from a place of brokenness, because I was there. I know how to communicate with my community. I know how to communicate with people, because now I can I can stand in their shoes and say, I've been there. Now let's get it together.
Ashe. And how important is this for the children, your children? Because you have some children, you don't want them to run away from themselves.
No.
You know better. So tell us why that is so important.
It's really, really important because, a lot of times when you look in our community, I think we have to sympathize. We have to have empathy for people. And a lot of times we're judging people, not understanding that, there are people that are going through traumatic experiences. That could be either in the household, either trying to be, because everybody who went to school here, right? There's always some level of discrimination, some level of, thing that we feel, right? Back in the day, having braids was a problem, but now it's not, it's okay. Back in the days, that's why all of us women, we want to press our hair. We want to do all of that because it wasn't okay. But now we're embracing it because now we're embracing who we are, right? So it's very important for us to embrace who we are because you can't teach a child to embrace who they are when you don't embrace who you are. So we need to first lead from the front, love who you are, love where you're from, because you can't change that. That's one thing. You can run and you can run and you can run, but you can't change who you are. You can't change where you're from, right? Because eventually you have to go and confront it. And it's okay for us to go and confront these things, right? Because till you confront it, you're going to keep on going in circles. You're going to be in the laundry, right? Over and over. So it's important for us to do that so that our children can see us.
Yeah. It's funny. You were saying this. There's this African song from Jamaica. Say you run and you're running away, but you can't run from yourself. So thank you for that. Sister Ginelle, let's start talk about money and banking. How did you get to, as Jamaican people say, partner? Some people say susu. Some people say rounders. Sister Ginelle, how did you get into this banking business, one of the first African banking business?
Well, really, I inherited the process from watching it as a child and admiring it and really reveling in the mystery of it, because I knew that I have to change that. I didn't know how economically challenging it was to make that transition to live in Canada from Trinidad because of the susu. Because what was involved was the community getting together and supporting each other through the susu process, so that when it was holiday time, we had new paint, new drapes. We had a wonderful spread, a feast at holiday time when we had celebrations. When it was my birthday and I asked for things that I saw on TV, they would appear in boxes wrapped for me. Or when I needed to wear a uniform to school, I had the uniform purchased and so on. And I learned that all of these were made possible through this magical thing called the susu. And I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And when I grew up, I learned that it was really just a way of community, and mainly women in the community, supporting each other through a savings vehicle. So it wasn't really magical. It was purposeful, deliberate, intentional, traditional financing. And so it's both a credit and a loan operation. And really, when I started to look into what it is and how it's structured, I understood that it is the basis of our banking system, except for the fact that there's no one making a huge profit on other people, but it is about more emphasis on the sharing and community support to achieve common goals. So I think that's where that's what I learned about it. That's how I became involved in it, attracted to it. And it's been over Now I would have to say it's been at least 25 years I've been doing Susu myself, running one as a banker lady.
Here's the thing, and I know maybe this is a Canada thing, but in the Caribbean, the house always take a hand. Like every time a hand comes in, they have a hand because how it's showing their work. Over here, it seems like we're so polite. We're like, if you want to donate something, you donate something. But it was known in Jamaica that whatever I do, whatever part, even if I'm playing cards, the house takes something for their time to make sure the game runs function. Do you notice that over here, that you guys are so polite that you don't really take a hand?
So I look at it this way. I am doing it as an extension of my own purpose. Like Porcia articulated, she recognizes that because of her journey, she has something to offer her community in terms of their growth and learning. And I feel the same way. So, you know, because we are so separated from ourselves and so unaware of how to be ourselves, I did not want to have any association with it as somehow it's about me profiting. So I absolutely took that piece out on purpose because I wanted to make a clear statement that this is about building community, restoring our traditions and so on. And I understand that I'm not restoring it at 100%, but I leave it up to the people who are participating to decide whether or not to make a contribution for the upkeep and for the effort and work that goes into running the Susu. And some people do give, some people give one hand, some people give a quarter of that, some people just give a thank you. And I'm not doing it for that purpose. And I am putting out the energy because I want to repair that missing piece of trust, because that's the other underlying thing about the Susu. You cannot be involved in a Susu if you do not trust the people that you are investing with. And so I think it's important that our community needs that. It's part of the healing process for our community. So whether or not, I know there are some people in my Susu who don't really need a Susu, right? To save or to invest or whatever the case may be, but they are participating because they understand that same fundamental thing, which is that every foundation, everything that we need to build together as a community requires that we build trust first.
So then, all right. So I like your answer. I love it. But as the host, I'm gonna push back sideways because I can't push back too forcibly on you. So what I'll say, in my heart, it says reciprocity. So while Sister Abena is saying, well, I'm gonna not put it this way, but for us as Africans, there's a reciprocal behavior. And if we see Sister Ginelle doing all of this work, it's in our best interest to also, and sometimes it's a thank you, sometimes it's that acknowledgement, sometimes it's a quarter, sometimes it's donating a hand back to the women collective, because it can come in many ways. But there's an African trust, there's an African reciprocity. So wanted to add that, and then we'll move on to Abena, Porcia. And I want to talk to you about money and the African community, money and the Black community, and money and mindset. From your experience in financial planning, Porcia, from your experience in your mortgage business, tell us about what's your thoughts on our community, and we're talking about our community and money.
I think our community doesn't understand the value of money and what money is, right? I think a lot of times, a lot of people look at money from a scarcity place because they maybe grew up in lack. They maybe grew up where money wasn't something that was a lot, right? And also because we don't have the foundation of financial literacy, sometimes it hinders us as we grow up how we manage money. You know, and that's the thing. A lot of my things that I have done in the past has really, like, I sit back and I look at how I dealt with money, and it was from a scarcity place. It was from a place of, you know what? Money comes, money goes. And a lot of us, we say, money comes, money goes. We don't see that, you know what? The money, we can't, it's, you know what? It's hard to explain it because it's a lot when it comes to money in our community, right? We have bad money management. A lot of times we're making our money decisions based on other people, based on China status, based on other things. So a lot of times people are coming, let's say for the mortgage process, a lot of people are coming and you can tell that, you know what? They're not managing their money properly. You look at their credit cards, it's all maxed out, right? Everything is all maxed out. And then they're trying to apply for a mortgage and it's tight, right? But when you start to have that conversation about, okay, let's be financially prepared before we get into it. Some of them think that, oh, you don't want them to buy the house they want, or you don't want them to win, right? Some people might call you a hater because you're trying to help them to put things in order before they get into that home. Because growing up, a lot of us were I always say a lot of us were latchkey kids, right? A lot of us, we were young and we had to take care of younger siblings because our parents had to work so many jobs, right? And we had to raise ourselves because of that, right? And a lot of times it's because our parents did not have that money mindset. They did not have that understanding of, you know what? We don't have to spend all of our money, right? Let's be conscious. Let's be mindful of where our money is going instead of spending. And in the end, there's nothing to show for it, right? Because, for example, with what Ginelle is doing, in order for you to be able to do that, you have to become aware of what's coming in and what's going out. Because at the end of the day, that's why sometimes I hear stories about Susu, people participate and they get their hand and then they forget about this whole thing because they're not being mindful of their money. Because if, let's say, you're supposed to give $200 and you're not budgeting yourself, right? You might not have that $200 to give to Ginelle, right? Or you might not have that $200 to continue. Right? So in order for us to be able to invest and do certain things that we need to do, we need to start to have sit downs and see where our money is going. Become more educated about what money is, because money is supposed to work for you. Money is like a credit card. It's a tool that we use to live the life that we want. But if we don't understand simple things as, you know what, spending habits, investment, and all of those things, we can't really use money how it's meant to be used.
Thank you. And so some people are screwing up right now because they're like, I know to handle my money. Who are you talking about? You're not talking about me. So I want to make it clear, you're talking about from your own experience, right? And people who you come into contact with, because, you know, Ginelle might have had other people. Let me talk to Ginelle straight. Ginelle, how, and you don't give, we know you don't need to give name, but in general, how is it in terms of your partner? Are people regulating themselves to make sure that they have this trust to pay on time so everybody gets the draw? I'm waiting for a draw right now as I speak. Go on, Sister Ginelle.
So I would say that, well, I want to backtrack just a little bit. I think that I have a different view. I think that our people invented systems of money. I think we understand money very well. I think that we are caught up in a misunderstanding of money created by the system of capitalist wealth driven more. So we have this mindset that if your money is not growing and working for you, that you're somehow not doing the right thing with your money. But I do believe that money comes and money goes. I do believe that money is a tool, as you said. I do believe that money, however, is not our source. And so we do need an abundance mindset, but it's not necessarily an abundance of money. Because, you know, my cousin taught me that you do not need a boat, Ginelle. You need a friend with a boat, right? And so if we understand the principle of Ubuntu, right, then we understand that we all don't need to be one thing financially, but we need to support each other. And it is the interdependence and it is the way that we use money to help each other that makes money powerful. What has happened is we've gotten caught up in an idea of individual wealth and scarcity as the basis of how we think about money. So I totally understand what you're saying in that definitely is something that we need to change. So part of the philosophy in our Susu is that we share not only the Susu monies with each other, but we share messages of positivity, of abundance. When we give our Susu hand, we also give a message. I hope that you have abundant blessings beyond even what you're collecting in this Susu. So it goes beyond that. And so I think we are trying our best to recreate that culture of Ubuntu, that culture of interdependence, and that culture of trust, and asking more, what can I do, and how are my actions, and how I spend my money on a daily, how is that benefiting other people in my community? Because that's what we've lost. That's what we've lost. We've become convinced that if we don't become the next Elon Musk, or I don't know, whoever the richest person is right now, that we're not somehow doing the right thing with our money. And I'm thinking, okay, so on balance, if we go back to our indigenous ways of being, we take and we give what is needed to sustain our community and our life. It's when we start thinking that we have to produce at such a quality that's why the earth is dying, such a quantity, I mean, that is why the earth is dying. We're out of balance because we misunderstand the purpose of money. We misunderstand these things because we're buying into a distorted definition of what life is all about. So we are rich in the things, right, that we have cultivated for generations and centuries, and that's in the relationships of trust. And you know, we could never see someone in our community, if we're living true to how we are, suffering and not reach out to help and support. So anyway, and you know what, I'm sorry, but someone told me this story about and I'm struggling to remember who it was, but they lived in a place where one person was the fish, caught the fish, one person grew the vegetables, and they would have a meal because they were each contributing to that. And when only one fish was caught, they would have a little bit less and they would have more of the other. Anyway, so it was a beautiful, true story about how these people lived, and they all contributed to the children getting an education and so forth. Unfortunately, that education led to the children becoming individual thinkers, individualist thinkers, and you know, that's not our community.
Thank you.
Story.
So thank you. The idea is to have wonderful balance, because it is important to have a cultural foundation that money is spiritual, because the world has everything to feed everyone. So let's go back to Porcia. Porcia, I know you've been working on credit. Mm-hmm. It's funny, you know, that word credit, you know, somebody can give me credit just to give Sankofa some credit that I've been working hard. And then they might give me credit, like money, like, you know, put me in debt and let me have to have a debit. So here's this credit that you've been doing now, Porcia. People are trying to purchase homes, because this is also not everybody not going to own homes, but people want to purchase homes because they need a place to live. How are some of your experience trying to support the Black community and even other communities in building their credit? Because now we're talking about credit. Yeah.
You know what? I think credit is not new. It's not new. Credit is as old, it's like 5,000 years old, right? Because even back home, right? They still do it where you will go to a store, right? And you'll be like, they'll write your name down and then you go pay they'll give you the product and you go pay. This is all borrowed. There's nothing new under the sun, right? But the whole thing about credit is the same thing that Sister Ginelle is communicating about trust. It's about your character. And I think a lot of times we forget that, credit is how you build your character. Because with credit, somebody's giving you money and you are promising to pay them back. And when you don't pay them back, you just lost that character. You just lost trust. You just abused somebody's trust because they saw you on paper. Because I always tell people, you cannot get upset why somebody will misjudge your character based on how you present yourself, right? Because they don't know you. A lender doesn't know you from anywhere. They're just measuring your behavior based on your credit history. That is, that's the system that is in place that all of us, whether we like it or not, that's just how it is. That's just how it operates, right? So they are saying that, you're paying your bills on time. You're doing this, you're doing that, and that's increasing your credit. So we're going to give you that house, right? Because home ownership is not only about credit. It's about your income. It's about other factors. But one of the biggest factors is also your credit, because nobody wants to give money to somebody they can't trust. Nobody wants to give money to somebody that's going to run away. All of us are like that. Who can even remember somebody you borrowed money to, and when you try to get your money back, that person disappears and that person act like, they want to fight you, right? That is not good character. And that's what credit is. If we're going to use credit, we have to pay it back. We have to understand how credit functions, right? Because it's a tool that we use. So if it's a tool that you can use to acquire things, then you have to make time to get to know it, to understand it. There's so much information out there. There should be no reason why we don't read into things, right? So by understanding credit, by knowing how it works, there's no reason why you can't use, right? Because it's like the law. People always say you can use the law to defend the law, right? Mm-hmm. That's what credit is. You can use the credit rules to defend your thing, to get your stuff in the right direction, right? So pay your bills. Pay your bills.
So,
right?
Hold on, let me stop you there, because I noticed one of the things they did to us. I remember, I don't want to age myself, but let's say I remember black in the day, college, university. I noticed they showed up on campus.
Mm-hmm.
When people are 18, 17, 18, and they say, sign up for these cards. And a lot of people was on, like, let's say OSAP when the grant was done. And they were taking the stuff and running up their bills. So maybe you should talk about some of that. And how can we even address that before young people who has a debt in university or college then take on another credit card debt? Maybe you could touch on that.
Well, this is the thing. And I talk about that a lot. And I think that the government has to do something about it, right? Because the way they're so aggressive on the college campuses, right? And the thing too is they do tag selling, where they offer you something by signing up. And as an 18-year-old, if somebody, I remember York University, I went to York. And as soon as you walk in, there's one right there. You go to the cafeteria, there's one right there from BMO, because I know there's BMO on campus, right? There's credit cards being offered left, right, and center. And they're offering you a $40 York University card. What young person, especially, people know that free food tastes better, right? So young people will go and will get these cards, whether they qualify or not. They will just go get these cards, right? And then they just see swipe. Oh my God, it worked. Swipe, it worked. And they keep on swiping. But the onus is on the home to educate the children. I think we have allowed society to educate our kids. We need to now educate our kids, because we can't stop that, right? People have been trying to stop it for years, but it's still going to happen. So that means when we send our children out, we need to teach them about the value of credit. We need to teach them to understand credit before they turn 18 and they get it. I remember I worked at one of the banks as an underwriter for the credit cards department. And I always share this story because it boggles my mind. I had, this girl called me and she had just gotten approved for a credit card about a month ago. When she got the credit card in her thing, 2 weeks later, the card is maxed out. And she's trying to use it and it's declining. And she calls in. She's like, oh, what'd you guys do to my card? It's not working. I'm like, it's full. You need to pay. She's like, nobody told me that. I'm like, she's like, somebody just told me to get this card and I got it. Nobody told me. And that's what a lot of times we are being a disservice, especially to the next generation, because a lot of us, we were victims of these campus cards. Even nowadays, everywhere you go, Walmart is harassing you. Canadian Tire is, every store is harassing you to get a credit card, right? To get a credit card. And a lot of times they will target the younger people because the younger people are just, they don't know. So they will target because at the end of the day, they're in the business of making money. Interest is how they earn their money. Interest is how they multiply their money. So if you're not paying your bill, they're earning money. However, the banks also don't want you to default, right? Mm-hmm. They earn their money through interest. However, they also don't want you to run away because when you run away, it becomes a liability in their books, right? So we just have to be conscious. We have to educate. The education is so important. And as part of my program, I teach parents from the age of 13. You can teach your child about credit cards. You can teach your child about credit cards because at 13, you can add your child as an authorized user on your credit card. So if you have a second credit card, add your child as an authorized user. He will get a card, he or she will get a card in the mail with their name on it. Even if you reduce it to $500, when that child uses it, if they choose to use it, you start teaching them, this is your card. If you use it, you have to pay. Your name is on it, this and that. If they choose to use it, right, you make them pay for it. Mm-hmm. And you don't just let them pay over the bank. I always tell them, actually take them into the bank and have them pay to the teller. Because then they will learn about the transaction of owing and paying back. They will understand, right? Because it's your card, you get to manage it, but at least they're able to use a credit card from now. So when they turn 18, a lot of kids, if you know kids don't like spending their own money. They don't. All right. So when you tell them it's their card, they're probably going to be mindful. They're not going to go and just spend it on candy and do whatever because they know it's their money, right? They know they have to pay back. They understand the concept. So they're going to be mindful of it. And when they turn 18, right? When they turn 18, they understand, right? The thing is, in the US, if anybody's listening in the US, when you add your child as an authorized user, you're actually building their credit. Canada used to be like that, but they changed it. You're actually building. There are people who have done that from 13 or 16 years old. And by the time the kid was, let's say, 18, they had perfect credit, right? Because you're building, when you're an authorized user, they're actually building your credit. But in Canada, it's not like that. But even that, use that to teach your child the value of credit and how the credit system works. Because a lot of us, we're not having education. Growing up, this is what I heard. Don't get credit cards. It's evil. Don't do it. Don't do it. And curiosity. Young people were curious. If whatever is not good for us, we want to know why it's not good for us. So we get it. We get it. And if somebody gives you free money, what are you going to do? People will go on shopping spree at Yorkdale. And then you can't pay it. Right? Okay,
good. So
can't do that.
So I'm going to come back to you. I think I'm going to go to Ginelle. And when I come back to you, I want you to think of why it's so important. We're going to talk about financial literacy when I come back to you. Why is that so important from in the elementary schools? So that's what I want you to ruminate on. And I'm going to go to Sister Ginelle. Sister Ginelle, let me just say this. I grew up in Jamaica back in the day, and I remember at these little shops, we call them mom and pop shops. They used to have IOUs on there. I remember several years later, They say Mr. Credit is dead. Even in those shops, like people stop because if you don't pay your credit. So here we are. The other day I was watching you in a documentary. Could you tell us why is it important to do research, Sister Abena Ginelle, in these things? Because some young people said, hey, Susu is no good. Like I know young people look at me and they're like, everything else is better. Crypto, everything, but Susu ain't that good. So tell us why research is so important, Sister Abena Ginelle.
Wow. So, you know, I think it is important to know what we're talking about when we talk about Susu, because there have been things that have cropped up that are called Susu and they're not really Susu. And Susu is a particular thing. It's not a money maker. If you want to earn money, earn interest, and so forth, then you're looking at vehicles that exist within the financial industry. We don't have, the Susu is strictly a savings vehicle, right? You get out what you put in. That's the purpose of it. It works as a credit system because if you get an early hand, then you're essentially borrowing money interest-free from your community, okay? If you take a later hand, you're a lender. And there are strategies because people have taken the Susu to use as investment. I'm in a Susu right now that is a weekly amount that everyone puts, and we're saving it together. So the banker in that case is banking the money on our behalf and keeping us abreast every 6 months of how much money we've collected. And at the end of it, we're going to look at possibly investing in either real estate or land or investing in a business or creating a foundation for our community. We're not sure what we're going to do with the money yet, but we're looking at options. But the point is that it is about us pooling resources together for a purpose. So there are many different ways you can do Susu. The other thing that I researched and found out is that when Berry Gordy started Motown Records back in the 60s, it was from Susu money, from the ladies on the block, that gave him the capital to buy the initial building, I believe it was. It's either the building or to buy the actual business. So there are many, many ways that the Susu represents the strength and support of the community, pooling together to do something for each other. Yeah. And then I think I agree 100% with teaching children about how the money system works within the capitalist system. But I also, in parallel, teach about our traditional ways of thinking about using money and how we are to be with money as a culture in our community. But yeah, the thing that zings us is the understanding of compound interest. The understanding of the value of building credit. So I agree, since my kids were in grade school, I taught them, when they asked, because what's this thing that you're paying all the time, the mortgage, mommy? And I explained to them what the mortgage is and why we only own a percentage of our property in reality, and that the bank currently owns, a percentage as well. And that over time, we pay down on the principal, and they understand what the principal is, what the interest is. What I show them, the credit card bills, and when you buy something, because my son, actually, I giggled when you said it's easier to spend other people's money, because that was one of the first comments my son said to me when he started working. He was thinking about his paycheck and how he was going to spend it. And he said, Mom, it's a lot harder to spend my own money than it was spending yours. And I think I remember that, and I think it's really true. And the other thing is not only teaching them about the credit system, but I taught them about how to buy, because I said, you don't buy just by price, and you just don't buy just by brand. You look at the quality of the thing, and you must know enough about it to decide whether it's worth the price that is on the ticket. Because so really value is more than just what the price is, and you've got to know, what you're actually buying, because that all fits into this idea, so that we don't get caught up in just buying something because it has a name. And the final thing I'll say is I really think it's important that they learn critical thinking around the way money works, in terms of, because we live an Afrocentric existence, we're always asking, what is the outcome of this particular action to African people? So if we buy Tommy Hilfiger clothes, right, or if we buy Gucci purses and bags and so on, so if we drink Courvoisier, and all of these, what are we doing? We're feeding into a system that is unkind to our people. So we're always looking for African owned. Like, I'm not a makeup person, but now I'm wearing lipstick because there are some
I noticed.
Thank you. There are some African ladies who could. So I'm wearing right now a combination of Dudus from the Juvia line, and that's Black owned. And I'm also wearing Boss Lady from the Lip Bar. So I mixed colors. So I'm wearing both red and a black, because I said, what I'm doing, I promote our businesses, I support our businesses. My glasses, Chinese, but I don't know of a company yet that's making, but when I do, I'm going to buy that. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm thinking always of race, but I am thinking about the economic disadvantage that has been placed on our people by an overrepresentation of others in our economy, in our economic exchanges. So I'm being very purposeful about supporting African-centered businesses and African-owned businesses for that reason, not because I don't appreciate products that other people make, but I will go out of my way to do that.
Yeah, and I just want to share this with you, because as you were speaking, I was going to say this, but then you I think you're reading my mind. So I went into a certain organization because I just want to start I want to register my business, because I've been doing it along, but I'm more informal. But I said, you know what, I'd like to do it formal. So I'm meeting with a coach, and I said to the coach, I could probably purchase these boards in China for $5, but I'm gonna go to Africa and purchase these games for a certain amount, and I make less. I'm gonna make less. And then every year we'll put my hat to the business. We'll ask, use my hat as that. Did the business do help African people, right? And so I was there getting all excited with this advisor. And then when the advisor spoke to the bigger advisor, he said, oh, this gentleman here, Sankofa, doesn't want to make money. So it took from me saying, I'm not trying to go to China to do African products to mean that I don't want to make money. And I said, but I never said that. I'm going to make lots of money to give back to my community, but it's spiritual money. And so I think that there's what we call it, there's a tension. There's with Afrocentric and Eurocentric capitalism. And I guess we're always going to be there. There's going to always be the conversation. Is that what you're saying with your children, with our community? That's that push and pull.
I think we have to understand what our money is doing and make a decision what we want to support with our money. Because as Porcia said, it's a tool. It's not just, spend, right? We can be purposeful about how we spend it. And admittedly, like I actually on a philosophical level don't believe in buying land, because land is God-given, right? And also, I think it's insulting to the indigenous people of this country that the land was stolen for them and then we're selling it, right? So I've tried to come to a rationalization around the fact that I'm buying it back as an indigenous person. of African indigeneity, and I am honoring it, and I'm not trying to treat it with disrespect. And it's kind of complex. I'm still working it out because I fundamentally have an issue with having to buy land that was stolen from indigenous people in this country. I don't know. I'm not finished my thinking process on that, but I just have reached a place where I think, for me, I look at it as buying it back. Yes, it is for myself and my community, but I just think we have so much to repair in terms of what has been taken, stolen, and lost.
Yeah.
I can't say much more because the thoughts are jumbling. But
no, I think it's good. I think it's a good conflict to have, because it just says that we who have conscience must question it. That's why, and we're here today in places where injustice still taking place, right? So let's go back over, because we talk about the children. How is it that we begin to speak with children about financial literacy? And when I say financial literacy, I don't mean from the European standpoint, but all of it. How do we start, Portia? And, how do we get the Susu in there too? Mm-hmm. Is this appropriate in your line of work to get the children to know, the idea that Africans came up with the first, halal banking, no interest?
Yeah. So I actually have a friend whose daughter makes and sells Susu boxes, right? She makes and sells Susu boxes for the kids, teaching the kids how to save, how to do all of that. I think she's about like 10, between like 10 and 11. Yes, and she does that. And she has a YouTube channel and she talks about all of this, right? So it's really good because when we give our children chores, because every family has their own philosophy, right? We all have our own philosophies of how we manage our household and stuff like that. Some families believe in chores and giving kids something for chores. Some people believe in, no, this is your duty, so you have to do it. We're not going to pay you for it, right? So basically starting off with, okay, what can you implement in your house? Even when the kids get birthday money, right? How do you manage it? How do you help teach them by using that money to save? So for example, I think before we can teach children about finances, we have to know ourselves about finances, right? We need to have the philosophy of finances. How do we want to manage finances in our house? Do we have a budget? How often are we looking at our budget? Do we have an expense tracker? How often are we looking at it, right? And if we're looking at it, are we looking at it on our own, the mom and dad, or are we looking at it as a family, right? So one thing that I will recommend is, let's say if you have a budget in your household, right? When, let's say you're going through the budget, don't keep the kids out. Involve them in everything in the household. If you're looking at it, let's say you're calculating and stuff like that, have one of the kids be the writer. Have one of the kids be the calculator. Have one of the kids, and when they ask, because then when kids are involved in it, when you get to places where they ask for something that maybe you haven't budgeted, they will be able to understand. And they will even say, you know what? It's not part of the budget, right? And even including their little things in the budget. So let's say if your child does sports, include it in there when we go to your games. Because I know with basketball games, sometimes you got to pay as a spectator fee. You got to, this summer, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Involve them in it, right? Whatever they want to do. Right? Let's say, you know what? Let's put the budget out. Is it included? What can we do? What things can we take out? What can we add and have them as part of it? Because when kids become involved, they become interested. In the beginning, it's going to be like, oh, this is too much. But eventually, as the parents are being consistent with it, and as the children are seeing it, they will learn fundamentals that will help them in the future. right? And it all depends on, because every family does things differently. But I think every family needs to have a philosophy, right? What is your vision for your family? What do you want your family to look like, right? And then you look at, okay, what's our spiritual vision? What is our financial vision? What is this vision? Because it's the vision that will come alive for the kids, right? And it's very hard to answer this question because it's all based on what the family's vision is, right? That will help on how they teach. Because if the family doesn't have vision, the children are not going to have vision, because vision will lead you. It's going to direct you to how you do things. If, let's say, you want to buy a house, right? You want to buy a house, but you're still going to your Holt Renfrew every weekend, buying Balenciaga shoes and buying Louis Vuitton and letting material things dictate your financial future, then that might not be what you need to do. That's why you need to have vision. What do you want? And what are you willing to do to get there, right? And that is what's going to help you, because your motivation is going to help your kids. Your kids are going to learn from what it is that you're doing. Because you can't tell your kids, oh, you can't do that. And then they see you doing something that you said they can't do, right? We have to lead by example as well, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Sister Ginelle, Abena, let's just talk about the farm. Let us talk about how community members, why is it important to invest in Adinkra? What opportunities are still there? I know COVID provide other challenges, but we want to talk about what's the potential to support community farms, if there's any other opportunities.
I'm so glad you put an S on the end of farms, because up to just before COVID, we had a farmer who was living on the property in the summer and planting, and now she has bought a piece of land in, oh gosh, I'm going to forget the name of the place, but it's just north of Guelph. And there are now about 4 Black-owned farms. One is in the Bradford area, and they are doing a great job in terms of planting and great business happening there. Our farm is operating more as a cooperative, and also our vision is reclaim, build, and grow. So there's a reclaiming of our culture, heritage, and connection that is part of our farm philosophy. So with that, we host events and allow community to come. So far this year, we've only had one major event for the spring, and that was with about 30 young people from the local schools, all young Black people coming to spend a day here doing drumming with Uncle Kwame, my husband. I taught a workshop on head wrapping. We taught about the Owari game. And then we have a young sister from South Africa who's staying with us, and she met with them as the elder from South Africa that was able to talk with them about those traditions and the history. So just connecting the generations. So under our Reclaim banner, we have done summer camps. Again, COVID has curtailed those activities, but summer camps and retreats, and we offer opportunities for people who are building teams to come up. So this summer, we're having a wedding on the property. We're having a couple of groups come for days of wellness retreat and team building. And because we also own a business that is connected to the farm, which is our consulting business, because both my husband and I teach how to interpret the world through an African-centered lens. So when it comes to thinking about running your business, structuring your nonprofit, all of those kinds of things, we emphasize building it not on Eurocentric principles, but on African principles. And so we kind of translate between the two worlds to do that. The investment opportunity that you're talking about was we put out a call to the community. And if you go back to my first set of comments about the importance of building trust, I'll tell you that I set a goal to raise enough to buy 5 cabins to put up on the property, so that when we have camps and retreats, people have a place to stay overnight. And I set a timeline for that. We started the campaign on October the 9th of, I think it was 2020. And I thought we will reach our goal by March of 2021. Well, what ended up happening was that the response was so overwhelming that by December, all of the spots that I had created for investment were spoken for. And that is because of the greater thing that is built, and that is trust. And I think people also believed it and supported the vision of Adinkra Farm. So in terms of pledges, we had all spots taken by December. So that was a very quick, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that some of the success that we have had is related to building trust and support in the community. And so that has been great. I mean, I could tell you a little bit more about the project, because we also then got the air of a group of people that were building tiny homes, and they were building completely self-sufficient. They had a prototype. It was just a blueprint. Sorry, they had a blueprint for a prototype, and they wanted a place to construct the prototype. And we said, yes, they could do it here. And then it was to be made a mobile home and taken away from Adinkra Farm. But because they realized that part of our Reclaim banner had to do with also helping people, supporting people who may be in need from time to time, including people who are temporarily without housing, they said, well, that's why we're building this prototype. So they asked if they could leave it here for us to use for that purpose, and we said yes. And so now we're getting, it's still being built, but the value of this home in terms of all that they're putting into it, and it will be completely self-sufficient, unlike the cabins that we were talking about, which we still have to figure out how to get it to that point. It's a value of somewhere in the neighborhood of $24,000, and that is going to be on our property based on their efforts and their fundraising and their work. And so our community will benefit from that. And the only, I guess, exchange is that we would allow people to come and see it, that they want to invest in them and in having more of them too. Many things have manifested since we launched that campaign, and we've also learned a lot. And one of those things is that in order to operate the farm in such a way that is profitable for the farm and also for the community, we don't necessarily have to get into overnight stays, because the day trips are really quite effective and allow us to reach more people, and there are less barriers to supporting that type of business. So we're learning as we go. And so last thing I'll say is that in terms of investments, and we are still thinking about how to incorporate an investment strategy into the services and programs, right? And I think I mentioned the other 2 pillars, so I'll just briefly go over them. The other pillar, other than Reclaim, is build, and that has to do with building on the property, and also building institutions. So we're interested in the sustainability of this model. And I was just speaking to my son, who's 16, earlier today, and telling him that even when Dad and I are no longer here, the farm is for community, and that's why we have to build the model so that it stays as an available piece for the community. And then the last pillar is grow. And that has to do with the farming and those types of projects that go on here. And I think that rounds off the 3 pillars and the 3 things that people are welcome to invest time, money, energy, ideas in at Adinkra Farm.
That's powerful. And we're going to go to Abena Portia now. Portia, a lot of people say, well, we can't afford a home. It's too expensive. Then we see the government interest rate going up higher and higher and trends. So now I want to ask you the question, Abena Portia. Can Black folks, I'm not talking about the wealthy ones now, because they can buy wherever they want at over $1 million, but can the middle, and I'm not sure there's a middle class anymore, but can the working class people afford a home? And if they can or can't, can they have a plan? If their credit is not the best, can you work with families to develop a plan, a 1 year plan, a 2 year plan to get them in their own home if they're disciplined and work with you?
Yes, definitely. And I think I wanted to piggyback off of what Sister Ginelle said. And, I think when it community, because we come from a collective, right? A collective society, right? We come from a society where community is what builds, right? Because I think that's what we've forgotten. Because if you do unto others, I'm telling you, if you think beyond yourself, you just get blessed. And that's what she just spoke about with all the donations that has come in, because she's doing not for herself, but for legacies to enjoy. And as a result, all the resources that she needed, she received. And that's what we have to do. Because a lot of times, even when it comes to home ownership, when it comes to other things, that's why sometimes certain people, if they put, even for families, you can get 2 families together to buy a home, but we don't do that because, I don't want this person in my space. This person, this person, this person, that. But if we look at other communities, they are willing to sacrifice and do things together to help one another. Even a lot of times when I'm speaking to some parents, they don't want to help their kids, right? They don't want to help their kids get down payment for their own home because, nobody ever helped me, so I don't want to help them, right? And that's not what it is. We have to help each other, right? We were all created to be there for one another, right? The body, even if you look at our body, even the Bible talks about it, right? If your brain is not working, a lot of the body parts will not work. Because we are in a society where we're meant to lean on each other. It's just this society here, North American and Western societies, is individualistic. But we need to go back to the root and do things together, help one another. So when it comes to home ownership, I have a group of 9 people who have gathered together and they want to buy something. Right. And when you do things, even if, let's say, one person buys, that equity can help the next person. That equity can help the next person. And within a short time, everybody will have a home. But certain people are like, when it comes to bringing this and helping other people to see that vision, no, I don't. I want to buy it by myself. I want to do this by myself. But sometimes you might need the help. And this is all to say, don't discount people. Don't discount people that can come and help you. And with home ownership, you need a plan. You can't just get up and say, I'm going to buy a house. You need to know where you're at. A lot of people, we discount ourselves because we're so caught up in what the news is saying. Turn off the news. The news does not dictate your future. These are just people's opinions. People are not in your household. People are not hustling like you. People don't know who you are. These people that are on the news don't know anything about you. You just focus. If that's your goal and you focus on it and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it, you will get it, right? But you do need a plan. You need to start. Where are you? Right? Connect with the mortgage agent, connect with me, because I have, resources that I can put in place to help you, right? Let's look at your finances first. You don't have a lot of people coming, they're like, I want to buy a house, and they're looking at houses and putting offers, and they don't even have a down payment, right? They don't even have a down payment. They've never even looked at their credit in years, right? You have to you have to have an awareness of what is required, because there are requirements. We can't take, because you're at the, you're going to somebody and you want to borrow money from them. They have requirements. They have rules. What are the rules? Start there. What are the rules? What do I need to be able to buy? Right? What do I need to be able to get my credit together? Then once you look at it, you know what? My credit is 600. Okay. Who can I connect with that can help me? Right? Who can I connect with? A lot of times our community, we're so caught up in saying, oh, my finances are personal. My credit is personal. You are suffering. It's not that personal, right? Because you're suffering. You're suffering because you need help. It cannot be that personal that you're stressing, right? And you're not showing up, especially for your kids and your family. It's not personal. You need help. It's okay, because our community, I used to be like that. We don't like to ask for help, right? We don't like to ask for help because we see asking for help as a sign of weakness. It is not. You're strong for asking for help. You're actually strong for asking for help because it's so difficult to get yourself to do it. Ask for help, right? Maybe your finances are out of whack, because at the end of the day, when it comes to, let's say, money, somebody who earns 50,000 can probably manage themselves better than somebody who earns 500K a year. It's all about how you distribute your money, right? How you manage that money. You can make your money stretch if you understand that it's a tool and certain principles for your money, right? So look at where to start, right? We can all buy homes, but we need to start somewhere. And then let's say if you realize, if you've done everything, you visited a mortgage agent, they looked at you, your finances are in order, all of this is there. A lot of times, I have an example where in last year, around August, I had a client who came in. And the client came in because I'm a credit repair coach and mortgage agent. So she came in for credit coaching. And she's like, oh, somebody told me that me and my husband, we would never buy a house. We will never. And I love when I hear those things, because I'm going to challenge you. So I told her, you are going to buy a house. So what did we do? I looked at everything that they had. I'm like, you guys, let's put all of our ducks on the table, right? Let's look at everything. Let's look at your credit. She just needed to boost her credit 30. So I got the credit up. And then I can tell you, I met them in August. They closed on a mortgage October 4th, right? It's because they were willing to seek the help. They were willing to say, somebody told us, and somebody else to believe, because a lot of times real estate agents, mortgage agents, sometimes we are so quick to send people out the door, right? We're not willing to sit there and look at what it is that they have. We're so quick to say, your credit is bad. Bye. I can't help you. Right? We need to sit with people. We need to help people, because if the person can't buy now, why don't you? This is somebody you can get later. Sit down with that person. Help them to get ready. Help them with the resources, because a lot of people just don't know. Right? And they come to you as a subject matter expert for you to guide them, to lead them the way. Right? So it's up to us to stop telling people, oh, your credit is bad, bye, because we don't have time. We need to have patience, and we need to love one another. We need to have patience for people. Yes, there are some people that will come that are annoying, right? That might irritate you, but still, if love is the number one thing, love will cover that annoyance, okay? Love will let you still do what it is to help that person, right? And that's what it is. Mortgage, getting a home is not hard, but what are you willing to do to get it? And are you willing to seek help, right? If, let's say, look at a lot of times, like sometimes you have a family of 5 and let's say the kids, instead of helping their parents, they want to go live downtown and pay $3,000 on rent, right? And these are some of these ideas that is happening in our community. Because at the end, if you help a group come together, you will get yours because you're investing in something. And we all know long-term real estate will grow, right? And even that equity alone can help you. And also one thing too, I wanted to put out there, we need to stop taking our equity to go spend on things that are not going to grow for us. Just wanted to put that out there, right? Don't take your equity and eat out all the equity in your house. And then when you still have, you're like 67, 70 years old, still with a mortgage, right? We need to be mindful of the things that we're doing so that we're not also overextending ourselves.
Thank you. Good. So thank you. And the good thing is you could also drop your information in the chat so people could connect with you at this point. We have a few more questions before we open it up to the audience. Sister Ginelle, Abena, the question I have for you, we always be talking about setting up an elder council. The other day, we had a healing circle. Talk to us about setting up these institutions, elder council, healing circles, to always have an African way of being in a white supremacist space like Canada.
Yes, I think that the need for this is increasing, or at least in my consciousness, it's coming up several times. And so the message I'm getting is that we need to just do it, because I think we've lost some of I know that we've lost some of those ways of resolving conflicts in our community. I know that along with COVID came things like marriage breakups and people coming to realizations about their relationships. And so oddly, I have been thrust into the position of speaking with people about their relationships, about how to help them deal with their relationships. And I thought to myself, well, I don't consider myself really an elder. And then I have things where I think I'm dealing with that it beyond really just talking to my own parents, knock wood, of both of which are still with us, thank goodness. But I think it would be good to get the wisdom, or to benefit from the wisdom of multiple people. So I do have people that I call individually, and they have expertise in different areas, and I rely on them. But I think that as a community, it would be great to identify a group of people who may be there to provide that type of guidance, and reestablishing some of the structures that may have existed in communities previously when we lived together as a community. So that's one of the ideas that I am thinking that is coming to me as something that we need to do to establish that. And I think it is needed. To answer your other question as to the value of it, I can see inherently the value of it immediately, but I think that if family is the foundation of our community, then traditionally, like I was raised by my grandmother, we need those intergenerational relationships. It's an extension of thinking about family. And because of some of the things that Porcia spoke about, we are inculcated into this individualistic thinking. And so we're separate, or the only people that we can talk about things with are people in our immediate family. And then sometimes even people in our immediate family adopt westernized thinking about things like, yeah, why should I help my children with this? No one helped me, right? So I do think that part of this idea of having an elders council would be restoring some of that and repairing some of the ties that have been severed in our communities. And the other thing, reason why I think it's coming to me, is that even though I don't think of myself as an elder, obviously many of the young people do, because they call me for those services. So I'm saying, you know what, maybe I need to accept my aging process, accept my eldership, because again, eldership is not something that we self-identify. It is up to the people in the community to identify you in that way. And so I think that's what's happening. And so I'm thinking I need help and support from other elders as well to help benefit the younger people coming up in our community. If I may, I'm so tempted to.
No, let me jump in before you
Yes.
continue.
Yeah.
So I, as I'm sitting here listening to you, it looks like we need two things. We need young elders. You're a young elder. And then we need an elder. So the young elders go to the older elders.
Yeah,
for
can
sure.
I just, before you go on, move on, like when you talk about elders, can you just elaborate more? Because sometimes the elders don't really give good advice. I'm sorry. Sometimes the elders need the young people, right? Because right now the young people, we are discounting the young people. And I think sometimes the elders come from a scarcity place that they're giving advice from that place. So how do we make sure that it's a balance? Because if the young people, sometimes if they're coming only to, because we have to learn from each other. The young has to learn from the old has to learn because the generations are changing, right? So how do we do that to make sure we're not segregating the young people, making them feel like they have to go to the elders? Because sometimes the elders are not the best advice givers. I'm sorry.
So should I, maybe I'll do this and then I hand it over to you, Ginelle. So sometime I think, Portia, you might be talking about elders. Elders is wise. So we don't call just old people elders. So when you're an elder, the title is given to you. And an elder don't do what you just said. So we always have to remind ourselves that, right? So Sister Ginelle, let me give it over to you because you're probably much sweeter in your explanation.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for making that point, Portia, because it gives us the opportunity to make that clarification. So simply aging does not equal eldership. And definitely there is wisdom that young people have because they live in a world that is today's world that we never lived in as older folk. So true eldership understands that. And understands that it's an exchange of wisdom and information that does go both ways. And there is a great deal of respect for people of all ages and the wisdom that they bring to the table. But if you pardon me, everybody can talk nonsense regardless of their age.
Yes.
And so we also need to understand that the type of eldership that we're talking about, as you did put it quite eloquently, Sankofa, comes with wisdom, comes with self-awareness, and comes with an understanding of how to share wisdom within the context of the best of our traditions. So, as with every group of people, we have the ideals, we have the aspirations, we have the best intentions behind our philosophies and ways of being. And then in practice, we have what some people might call hypocrisy, but I would choose to call it people who are in a constant journey of learning about how to live into those ideals. And they're not always doing it perfectly. And we all own that, me too, right? I'm calling that upon myself. But being an elder is understanding the aspiration, understanding the wisdom of what's behind that goal, understanding abundance and not scarcity as our principle, understanding the spirit, mind, body connection, understanding our connection to the land, and being able to be fair and reasonable in the advice that we give, not having any ego and self-interest in giving that advice, And so all of those things come with eldership. And to establish that type of a council, that would be part of the job description, right? If you're asking me, is that all of those things have to be shown by your walk through life to be in place. So it isn't a title that's what I meant when I said it's not a title I can give myself, but the mere fact that people are seeking me out for this, I am accepting that maybe I'm moving into that phase of life. And yes, it is somewhat loosely associated with age, but more with experience than with actual a number age-wise. I think it's, if you have the experience and have done the spiritual work to learn from those experiences in a certain way, you're ready to be in that eldership position. How did I do, Sankofa?
No, I think it was good, and I think it's a great reason, because I have the same conversation about who is an ancestor, right? Because people think it's every dead person, like, and we don't call every dead person in the room because it might be a dangerous thing. So, and I think, and I'm glad Portia was here with us, Abena Portia, to ask such a question, because I can see her Sankofa in back to Ya Asantiwa. Yes. So it is awesome that, and two of you here today, not by accident, it was a divine reasoning that she's so close to Trinidad and Trinimom. She, at one point she was like, I'm from Trinidad. But it's good. And then you were like, I'm from Ghana. And so we're connecting you guys today. So no, that's awesome. So we have a couple more things that we'd like to do. First of all, Sister Portia, I'd like you to call out your phone number slowly and your website and your social medium, because people are going to be listening and not just in the chat today, but they can listen. So they're going to have a copy of this recording. So maybe you could just tell them your number, your social handles. We are in a technological time.
Yes. So my name is Porcia Boateng, and my phone number is 416-906-2085. And I am a mortgage agent, a credit repair coach, and I am going to be licensed as a financial advisor. And right now I have a credit course that I'm going to be launching next month. And the website for that is www.gfmcreditacademy.com. But if you have any questions, any concerns, like what Ginelle is doing, I'm all about community building. I'm all about that. So if a lot of people are hesitant, I don't have no money, I don't have this. Let's just have a talk. Let's have a conversation. And whatever, that conversation might change your life, right? Don't hesitate. Just call me. Let's have a conversation. And then after that, that could be the beginning of your life changing. Thank you.
So let's get back to Sister Abena. Ginelle, could you voice out your contact information to the outerverse?
Sure, I did put it in the chat, but I'll tell you, I learned from a very wise young person that my website name was too long. So I'll just give my IG handle, and it's at Adinkra Farm. So @ ADINKRAFARM at Adinkra Farm. And then you'll get access to the website from there. And people all the time put an S on the word farm and call us Adinkra Farms. And so I don't know if that means we're supposed to have multiple, but it is only one place, Adinkra Farm.
Wow.
Singular.
It is a big farm too, right? What's on the farm? Let's get a little bit farming.
Let's get a little bit farming. So we are on 42 acres, and it's actually one of the smaller farms on our street. We have an area that is about 3 acres that's open for events and for people can come and camp and so on. Then we have a section of about 2 acres, which is ready for planting. And we do have garlic planting, or organic garlic. And Sister Yulisa has been with us for a while. She's planting vegetables of all different types. I just recently planted an herb garden right next to the house, and I have future plans to do a little bit more of that myself. And I'm getting into the gardening because I used to say, talk about, the wisdom of elders. I used to say all the time, oh my gosh, I have too much to do. I can't possibly actually make a garden here because it's too much work. And so an elder came to visit last year, and she bought me a lavender plant as a gift. And when I opened my mouth and I said, yes, I have about 21 different beds and I can't do it. I don't even know anything about gardening. I kill plants. She said, you are going to get online. You are going to research this and you are going to learn how to plant and how to grow the flowers in your garden. And I said, yes, I am. So now I am proud to say that I have irises. I've planted water lilies. I've planted 3 other varieties of lavender. I've planted basil, peppers, strawberries, tomatoes. I know the names of some of the things that are growing here. I've even assisted other people with their gardens as I am ramping up my knowledge of gardening. And so that's the garden and the inner part. And then we have the other 30 something acres is trails. And so the trails have to be cut in the summer, cut down, and so that people can walk them, but it's through the woods. And we also have 7 Adinkra symbol trees on the property that represent different stories and philosophies of the Adinkra, of the Asante people. And let me see, what else can I describe? I did buy some covered greenhouses this year, which we're using for storage right now. But soon I will be planting a year-round garden. So I think I'm going to start my hand at seeding in February so that we can plant.
You know what, though?
So.
You answer everything else, but my major ask was my animals, my birds. That was my major ask, but I accepted the other stuff. But what's on there? If I come on there early morning, what may I see?
You would see pheasants, big pheasants, which are native to the area. So, we have almost every species available in Ontario. And just last week, when we were preparing for my son's graduation party, we had 3 young people come onto the property to help. One of them is a snake owner, right? So he was out in the field and picked up a snake in the field and was dangling it in the air. And it started to make a rattling sound. So he dropped it immediately and looked it up online to find that we are in the space of the habitat of Ontario's only poisonous snake called the Massasauga rattler. Yeah. So I had to do some research about it and so on to find. So now coming to the property, we have to let people know because it's an endangered species. We're not allowed to touch it, move it, kill it, anything like that. And largely, well, not largely, what I found out is that only if you provoke the snake like he did, it would bite, right? However, if you just coexist with it, leave it alone, it will likely run away from humans. But we do have to do a little education to people coming to the farm about the etiquette of being in the habitat of the snake. And what I also found out is Southern Ontario is the habitat of the snake. So which means that the only reason it may not be in the city is because we have destroyed the habitats, which is what's making them endangered. And so they have moved out to areas that, so they'll be in the parks, in the city and so on. Learning this, I thought to myself, we should be educating people about the existence of these snakes, because I did know we had only one poisonous snake in Canada, but I did not know that Ontario was it. I thought it was only found in Alberta. But anyway, there you go, myth busted.
And
It's
just
here in Ontario.
yeah, but just for the record, remember when the flood happened a few years ago in July? The snakes were in
Yep.
the snakes were in the GO train downtown Toronto. They were swimming inside the train. So yeah, they're probably still somewhere around.
Well, yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yes, because the train got stuck, and those floods days were powerful. So yeah, they might be not there, but they're still here. Wonderful. So thank you.
They're all around. They're in the earth.
Yes. And then we go to Sister Portia. What do you have to say? I want you to say something to folks listening from our community. And what would you say to them about, taking leadership and becoming owners of real estate in this and building generational? If you had something to say, what would you say to our community?
Yeah. So before I say that, I actually forgot my IG handles. It's at Porcia, Porcia _Boateng, Boateng, all lowercase. So what am I going to say? Don't discount small beginnings, right? Start where you are, because you can't do anything unless you start with what you have in your hand, right? The small things, we see small things and we discount small things, but a lot of times is the little things that will help you grow to the big things, right? So start and understand that it's a process. Look at where you are. Look at what you have. Look at changes that you can make, because it's those changes, and don't give up. One thing I always share is it doesn't matter what your mother did not do. It doesn't matter what your dad did not do, what your auntie did not do. It doesn't matter that you live in Jane and Finch, that you live in Rexdale. None of those things matter, because you can become whatever you want to be. As long as you're looking within yourself, you're looking to learn more about yourself, to look at the power that is in you. So start where you are, right? And continue to move forward, because I always say this, that your legacy, the next generation needs you to show up so that they can show up, right? And that's what all it is. If you start to really understand that, I've lost this, I've lost that, I've been down, it's all okay. But even the butterfly is birthed out of hard times, right? Beauty always comes out of the hard times, right? And that's the thing. Our community, sometimes we tend to just sit in the lack. This one hurt me, so you know what? I will never this. I will never that. But the never will keep you never. But if you just put one foot in front of the other and say, I'm going to, every day, even if you don't believe it, just say, I'm going, because eventually you're going to believe in what you're saying. Right? I'm going to become a homeowner. You will be what you say you're going to become. But if you say, I'm never going to be, you're never going to be, because it's what you've spoken. So let us turn a lot of negativity. Let us use our past pain, our past hurt to be the motivator for us to reach where it is that we went. Because trust me, what you went through, you were meant to go through that so that you can now, other people, because this is how we tap into other people, because greatness, other people are looking for you to show up. Because if Sister Ginelle did not decided, because we've all been through things, right? If she did not show up, right, we would not be able to hear what she's saying today. The Adinkra farm would not have been manifested, but she saw that it's not about me. It's about the people who are yet to come, right? I know a lot of people, we hear that and we think, oh, this is too much of a burden. But always remember, everything that you do will either affect people in the negative way or in a good way. But we just got to continue to put one foot in front of the other and know that power is within you and just do it. Show up. I went through everything that I went through, right? And I always say, even though I was the one facing it, it was never about me. It was for me to become who I am so that other people can say, if she can go through it, if she can do this, if she can buy a house as a single mother, then I too can, right? And that's what it's all about. Let us look beyond ourselves, right? We come from a collective society. Let's start to adopt that and think about just only ourselves and think about other people. Think about the kids, because I know that a lot of us, we will not want to leave things that are going on for our children, right? If you won't leave it for your children, then don't leave it for other people's children. Because if you leave it for other people's children, it's going to affect your children too. So as much as you're hustling for your kids so that your kids will have a better future, have a collective mindset. I'm hustling so that every child, because eventually your children will come in contact with those children. So if we don't do this together, all of us will not benefit in the right way, right? Because it's not like we're going to keep our kids in the same house for the rest of their life. They will go out there, right? So if we help one another, all of us will benefit in the long run.
Thank you. Thank you. Sister Ginelle, if you had something to say to the people listening about developing an Afrocentric philosophy, mindset, ways of being to counteract what we're doing today in a Eurocentric paradigm, what would you say?
I would say start right away. First of all, read. It's a constant study. Talk to people and really tap into your own intuition, because a lot of it is not actually lost. It's the programming about capitalism has replaced what we instinctually know. And as people indigenous to the continent, we have a connection it's spiritual. And so if we tap into spirit in that way, it very quickly becomes clear, right versus wrong. Well, not thinking totally in that dichotomy, but we notice difference, acceptance versus control, right? Maybe is a better way to put that. And so I think starting right away, counting on other people in our community who are already further along on that journey to advise us. So looking at eldership in the way we described it, through experience, not through age. There's so much really good literature out there. But if we pay attention, one of the key things that I did in my own journey is understand who my ancestors were, understand what they did. And I found out that my grandmother was that person who fed the community. She was the person who sewed for the community. She had several businesses in her lifetime. Then I found out that my grandfather, who I never met, who my mom didn't even know, because he died when she was, when my grandmother was in her 30s and my mom was only 4 years old. And he was an engineer. And I didn't know that about him, an electrician, an engineer. And then so it's kind of like doing that type of work to figure out what has gone, because in science, in today's scientific terms, we call it DNA. But in our traditions, we know that who comes back was here before. And so we're searching for a sense of who we are, what our purpose is, and what we're supposed to do by understanding the line from which we come through our ancestors. So I think those things, study, connecting to eldership, understanding our ancestry, and really being tapped into our intuition are the things I would advise.
Yes, thank you. And so what we're going to do right now before we head out here is we're going to ask Brother Sean to come back on, as well as, is there anyone who would like to turn on their camera, put their hands up, or just put their camera on, unmutified, and come and pose a question, a comment to the reasoning, the groundation today. So we'll give a little bit of moment. We'll welcome in Brother Sean as well.
I may have.
Brothers and sisters, this is Sister Tandiwe. I wanted to thank Brother Sankofa, Sister Ginelle, and Sister Porcia for such an informative interaction. I wouldn't even call it a webinar, a cultural interaction. I just wanted to add to what's being said to make us more aware that our people worldwide, we are actually in the process of the restoration of our glorious African culture. So when Sister Porcia spoke earlier about getting to know herself and being proud of her African identity, we're actually in a very glorious moment in world history where many of our people around the world are reclaiming our African clothes, reclaiming our African values, reclaiming our African identity. And as Sister Ginelle said, tapping into our ancestral traditions around spirit. So it's actually a very exciting time for us to be alive. And the prospects for us to continue to rebuild and restore our culture are infinite. I'm an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party that was founded by one of our great ancestors, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, who was born in Ghana in West Africa, and Ahmed Sékou Touré, the then president of Guinea in West Africa. And so we have a very proud tradition of Pan-Africanism, which is actually an objective to unify our homeland, Africa, under the same principles that Sister Ginelle, Brother Sankofa, and Sister Porcia spoke about. We are the most collective people on the planet. We built the first civilizations, and those civilizations were built on collective principles of Ubuntu, togetherness, humanism, egalitarianism, and so on. So I just wanted to say Asante Sana, Medasi Pa, for sharing this cultural value exchange. We're not just talking, we're exchanging values about eldership, about property, and many other things in order to continue to contribute to the global restoration of the African family and the unification of our homeland, Africa. So give thanks and praises to all my brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for this informative cultural exchange.
Madasi Pa. Thank you, Sister Tanda. Is there anybody on the want to talk to that? No one, no? Okay, good. Brother Sean?
Greetings, greetings, greetings. As always, it was a pleasure. It's always good to be in the company of community builders, nation builders. I'd just like to say thanks to both of you, right, for the cultural education. Ginelle, certain things you mentioned took me back a bit, so that is great. And by the way, Anissa was here and she said they did do that thing with the cows in Trinidad. You may not have seen it, but she said they do, right? So, and Portia, it's an education, and even the simplest of things, it's good to understand that we can't overestimate what people do or do not know, and it's best to make things clear. So it was a pleasure being educated by both of you all, and hopefully we'll be working together again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. So is there anything else, Sister Ginelle, as we're exiting off the stage just now? Stage right, stage left, stage up, and stage down. We're gonna go all different directions, right? So is there anything else you want to say before we bid adieu?
Just that I sit here in deep gratitude for the opportunity to have had this time together with you, to learn from Sister Portia and from you and from our audience members. And I am going into this week energized and convinced that we're on that right path. And I'm so happy that you shared, Sister Tandaway, about the All African People's Revolutionary Party, because I think that this is what all of our energies and efforts are working towards, the unification of our people with our really true being and who we are, and reconnecting with that. So thank you so much for that reminder as well.
Thank you. Sister Portia.
Yes, I wanted to also thank you for this, for the opportunity to sit on this platform. And, I really wanted to thank you because this is something that I asked for. This is something that I honor, because like I said, I ran away for so long that now I asked for more opportunities to be involved in my community, to help my community. And this is an opportunity that I'm honored by, because this is what I asked for. And I know that everything that we've spoken today is going to touch somebody, for them to change their life, for them to see that we're not on the bad track, we're not on the wrong track, we're exactly where we need to be, so that we can get the healing that we need. Because identity is so important. And a lot of us, we've lost our identity, but I believe that there's a shift in the atmosphere where people are starting to love being an African, because it took a long time, especially us women. It took us so long to want to be identified as an African, right? But now we're embracing it. And I thank God for that.
Thank you, Madasi. So it's funny, you said track and I thought of Harriet Tubman. You said track, running off the wrong track. And I'm like, she never run off the track. Some people said she didn't read, yet she read the stars. People confuse reading letters with knowledge, but she never came off the track, Harriet Tubman. So in the spirit of Harriet Tubman, one of our original warrior, they said she was the Black Moses. If Moses was Black, she was the African warrior woman, Harriet Tubman. Give thanks, everybody. We love you. Have a beautiful day. I think I'm gonna feel good if I water the garden in honor of Sister Ginelle, who is now a master gardener. So one love, I'm gonna water and leave you guys till next time.
But you're supposed to water in the morning, I learned. Anyway, okay.
Yes, but what about when the sun goes down in the evening? Brother Sean, am I correct? Sister Portia, I need advice now before
I don't garden.
I do it both times. I do it in the morning and in the evening.
When the sun goes down, they say.
Right? So.
Okay. See, Sister Ginelle now, she's a professional gardener, like nearly to poke me, like, make me chop. Sister Ginelle, I'll do it in the morning too, but tonight I haven't done it in 2 days, so I'm feeling guilty. So I got to have to